Hi loves, in this tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you guys how I made this beautiful notched collar jacket. In my previous tutorial I shared with you guys how to draft and cut it out. So if this sounds like what you're interested in learning, keep on watching and let's get started. I have my center front and the side front on top the table, and I've cut it out with my lining and the actual fabric. I've added 1/2 inch seam allowances all around the pattern. To the down part I added 2 inches for my folding allowance, okay? And then to the side front I added 1/2 inch to these parts, 1/2 inch to the shoulder, and then 1/2 inch to the armhole area, 2 inches to the side seam, and then 2 inches to the down parts for the folding allowance. You can see I've fused in hairstay into it to give it a little bit of strength. Now if you want to cut out your center front, you're going to have to use the main material to cut out for both the lining and the actual fabric, as you can see on top the table. This is for my side fronts, and I have my lining and the actual fabric right here, okay? Now I did not interface the lining, but you can actually do that. Here is my center back and the side back. I added 1/2 inch all around the patterns, and then to the down part I added 2 inches. Now to the side back I added 1/2 inch all around the pattern, and then 2 inches to the side seam and 2 inches to the down parts. Let me go ahead and remove the patterns. You can see I have my lining and the actual fabric for the center back, and I equally have the lining and the actual fabric for the side back, as you can see. Now I'm going to bring in my collar. Here is the collar. My collar is cut on fold. This part of the collar is on fold, and I've added 1/2 inch seam allowance to the upper parts and the down part. This means that I added 1/2 inch all around the collar apart from the folded parts. So I have one piece as my lining and one as my actual fabric. The actual fabric I interfaced it with my hairstay, and this is equally my center front and the side fronts. I'm going to remove the lining parts so that we can start joining them together. So I'm going to place the 2 center fronts on top the table, and after that I'm going to bring in the side fronts. So one center front and one side front is going to be sewed together, as you can see me trying to arrange it. Now after arranging it in place, I'm going to use my pin, making sure that the right sides are facing each other. So please, you have to work with your pins, hold it in place before joining, because if not, one part might be longer than the other as you try sewing them together, okay? So I'm going to use my pins to hold it in place and then move over to my sewing machine and stitch using 1/2 inch. After stitching, this is what it should look like. Now I'm going to repeat the same thing for my lining parts, okay? Here is for my lining. I'm going to place the center front of the lining and the side front of the lining, and then stitch using 1/2 inch. After that I'm going to equally repeat the same thing for the center back and the side back. So here is the center back. I'm going to bring in the side back and then place them together just like this, as you can see, and then use my pins to hold it in place. Now after holding them together, I'll go and sew using 1/2 inch, and then repeat the same thing for the other sides, okay, and equally the lining. Now I am done stitching, and here is for my actual fabric and the lining for the front piece, and then this is for the back piece, okay? Now for this back piece, I'm going to equally join the centers together, okay? So you can see I have the lining and I equally have the actual fabric. You're going to have to start with the actual fabric so that you can be able to understand what I'm trying to explain here, okay? So this is the actual fabric for my back piece. I'm going to place it right side facing each other and then hold it down with my pins. So I'll move over to my sewing machine and stitch it using 1/2 inch. Okay, now I'll repeat the same thing for the lining. Now to the lining piece, I'm going to place it right side facing each other, and I will stitch using 1/2 inch. Okay, so if I want to stitch this back, I will get to this part with a tight stitch, and to this other part I will sew with a loose stitch and then continue with a tight stitch. Okay, this means that the middle I'm going to have to sew it with a loose stitch because I'm still going to loosen it up. All right, so this is what we have. I am done doing that, and this is the whole of my back. Okay, so this center I sewed it with a loose stitch because that is where I'm going to leave an opening in case I want to turn out the whole thing. You know, this is an inseam finishing that we are doing right here. Okay, now for the front part of my blazer, I've already gone ahead to sew in my welt pockets, which I showed you in my previous tutorial. I made a whole different tutorial on how to make this welt pocket. This is a double welt pocket. If you haven't seen that tutorial, I'm going to be linking it in the description box, so you go check it out. It is actually a very simple tutorial. Okay, so you can see that our blazer is coming to life. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to sew the side seam of my front and the back and equally join the shoulders together. So what I'm going to do is to arrange it in place. You can see what I am doing. First of all, I'm going to have to put on top of the table the back piece. After putting it, I'm going to bring in the front piece and then make sure that the right sides are facing each other, just like this. Okay, and then I will stitch the side seam using 2 inches. That is the seam allowance that I left for stitching up the side seam. Now after doing that for one part of the front, I'll repeat the same thing to the other side, as you can see me trying to do. So I'm going to stitch it all with 2 inches, and after that I will stitch up the shoulder with 1/2 inch. Okay, after stitching up one part of the shoulder, I'll repeat the same thing to the other side. Now I am done with the actual fabric. I'm going to repeat the same thing to the lining piece, exactly what I just explained. Okay, so place it right side facing each other, stitch up the side seam and then the shoulders together. So this is it. I am done with that, and you can see that our blazer is coming out gradually. Okay, so this is for my lining. I am done with that, and the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and measure my round armhole. After measuring the round armhole, I'm going to use it to cut out my sleeve. Okay, so for this my sleeve, I'm going to be making use of a basic sleeve. That is for the sake of this tutorial. You can as well cut out your 2-piece sleeve and then use it on your blazer. So now the length of the actual sleeve and the lining is not meant to be the same, so that you can attain a neat finishing. So what I will do is to reduce the lining by 1 inch. So from the down part of my lining, I'm going to mark out 1 inch and then cut it out. Now after doing that, I will go ahead and sew this into my blazer. Okay, so the lining should go into the lining part of my blazer, and then the actual fabric should go into the actual part of my blazer. I am done doing that, and this is what I have on top the table. I have equally gone ahead to reduce the lining part of my blazer by 1 inch. Here is my lining. You can see I've opened up the back part, which is where I'm going to be turning out my blazer from. Okay, and it is that part that I stitched using a loose stitch. So next thing I'm going to do now is stitch up my collar. Okay, now here is my collar. I'm going to place it right side facing each other and then stitch up the upper parts. Now after stitching up the upper part, I'm going to turn it out using the down parts. Okay, I have stitched it, and this is what I have. Next thing I'm going to do is bring in my blazer. Okay, this is the actual part of my blazer. I'm going to fold my collar into 2 and then notch the center. Now I'm going to align the center of my collar with the center of my blazer and then pin it up. Okay, now after pinning, I will go ahead and stitch it up with 1/2 inch. So please do make sure that you pin this properly, okay, without rushing. You can see what I am doing right here. After pinning up one side, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side, okay. So this is me trying to pin the other side. So I am done with that. I will now move over to my sewing machine and stitch using 1/2 inch. So guys, as you can see, I am done stitching it. Next, I'm going to bring in my lining and I will place it like this, and then go ahead and stitch it up with 1/2 inch as well. So you can see I'm trying to pin it up. You can actually see what I am doing. So the middle part of my lining is going to align with the middle part of the actual fabric, okay, with the right side facing each other. Now after pinning it up, I will go ahead and stitch using 1/2 inch. So guys, I will go ahead and sew it just like this. You can see what I'm showing you. Just go and sew it like that, and then once you are done sewing it, I will go ahead and stitch up the side. You can see because I reduced the lining by 1 inch, this is what I have, okay. Now after stitching one side of it, I'm equally going to stitch up the other side, and after that I will stitch up the down parts, okay. So I will stitch up the down part like this. And you see what I'm showing you. And then once I am done, I will go ahead and bring out my sleeve. Can you see? Here is the opening, and that is where I'm going to be turning out the blazer from, because every other place is sealed up. Now after this, next we are going to have to work with the sleeve, okay, because the sleeve is not yet joined with the lining. Can you see? You have to pay good attention to this particular part. It can be very tricky. If you're not careful, your hand will be stuck, okay. Your hand will not be able to come out. So you have to make sure that you sew this properly, okay. So I'm going to bring my lining and then bring the other part of the sleeve, which is the actual sleeve. Now what I'm going to do is face it with each other just like this, okay. So I'm going to be making sure that the lining and the actual sleeve faces each other like this, and then next I'm going to make sure that the right side of both are aligning with each other, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin it all around with my pins, okay. Now after pinning it all around, I will go ahead and stitch it up using 1/2 inch. You can see what I am doing, okay. So you have to make sure that the side seams aligns properly. Pin this all around and then move over to my sewing machine and stitch it up using 1/2 inch. I'll repeat exactly the same thing to the other hand, which I've done off camera. Now guys, after stitching this is what I have. Next, I'm going to place my hands on this opening and then turn out my blazer to the right side, okay. So this is what I'm going to do. You can see, just placing your hand and then make sure that you turn it out properly. Now once I am done turning it out, I'm going to show you guys what I have right here. So guys, this is what the blazer looks like at the moment. So all you have to do is go give this a good press, okay. You can see that the parts that is open right now is just the parts that you followed to turn this out. So now once you are done giving this a good press, you're going to have to stitch up the hole, okay. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and stitch it up, or you can use your needle to tack it, okay. And then you're going to have to create your buttonhole and then fixing your button on the waistline. And this is exactly how to sew a notched collar jacket. It is that simple. If you find this tutorial helpful, guys, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to share this video so that more people can get to see it. I will see you in my next one. Bye.